You are tuning in to the TheDnazChannel, where today we are entering the Renaissance and we are going to be talking about philosophy, mathematics, how the world works, all the good stuff, all the stuff that you love to ponder on your free time or while you're at work, dazing off, not working hard, wondering why the fuck am I here in life? Why the fuck am I in this place? Right? These are things we all wonder, things we all love to wonder, because life is hard as it may be. So, today's topic is mathematics. Is mathematics real? Right? We want to know, does math explain our universe? Can you explain our universe, our physics with mathematics? And it turns out you can. But does that mean that math is real? Was it invented or was it discovered, right? Was math sitting there in the universe waiting for man to discover it, right? Was it just there in the ether, in the air, just waiting there? And then when we discovered math, it was like, oh, we found this. Or did the human brain create math, right? Did we create math? So what are the arguments? What are the arguments? Okay, so when you are born, right, as a kid, if you look at a toddler, right, they start picking up objects, right? They get curious, they pick up objects, they start placing them into places, and then they'll take them and they'll move them into places, right? Already when you are a human problem solving, right, even as a toddler, you are taking things and you bunch them together, right? Just like when you're walking, right? You know, if I'm walking, I'm getting too close to the camera, right? I took 2 steps. So I need to take 2 steps back, right? But how else would you judge distance, right? If you weren't taught math, let's just say, how else would you judge distance, right? You would know, okay, it's this many steps, right? To the camera. It's this many steps in your face, right? So you're already kind of thinking in numbers. You're already like, okay, it's 2 steps to the edge of the cliff. If I take 2 steps, I'm done. Now, whether you call it two or whether you think of it as a number or you think of it as a motion, like boom, boom, right? Boom, boom, right? A motion. Could think of it as that. But there's still, right? There's still two steps there. You can't avoid that. You can't avoid the number. You can't avoid the math, right? So even animals do this. Crows are very smart animals. Or like when they'll pick up sticks and they'll bring them, they try to impress the woman, right? So they build little things, they gather things. Sometimes they do numbers, and you can teach a crow to count in numbers, to understand that, right? Birds are very smart. So, but that doesn't mean that math was there. That doesn't mean that math is real yet. We can't. How do we prove this, right? How do we prove this? And we know that numbers correlate to the universe, right? Like we know pi, right? Or the golden ratio. What is that? 3.16, something like that. It's in everything. 3.22. I don't know. I can't remember. It's in everything. It's in like the sunflower. You look at the sunflower, it has that pattern, the flower of life pattern, right? Everybody knows the flower of life pattern, which, by the way, the planets follow the flower of life. There's videos online you can look. If you look at how the planets come, they all come in circles and they all do this. All those circles come together to make the magnetic field of the universe is all in that flower of life structure. If you don't know what the flower of life is, look it up. Okay? You'll see the flow, the magnetic flow of the universe, right? All follows that pattern. The planets in our sky, the original celestial bodies, right? The original celestial bodies follow this pattern. You know, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Neptune, Earth, all like around the Earth, they all follow this pattern, the way their orbits are and what they do in the sky, all will make up this same pattern that is coming out through a sunflower on Earth. So that proves as above, so below, the ancient saying, as above, so below, right? The same thing we see on a macroscopic level, we see on a microscopic level, right? Up there in the heavens, you can see the planets making the design of the flower of life. Down here, down to a sunflower or even a snail shell, you can see the flower of life, the golden ratio. That number, the golden ratio, adds up. It comes through in everything in the universe. Now, was that sitting there? Now, that may mean that nature itself follows this design. Does that mean that math was always there, that golden ratio? It is there. But did we assign it there? It doesn't seem like so, because it is there, right? It is there. But we gave a name to it, gave a number to it. But that's just because we as humans identify things, right? We take things, we give it a name, we identify it, we give it a name. Because we have to call it something. That's part of language. That's just part of language. We have to give something a name so that we can talk to each other about it, right? We have to talk to each other. So, does that mean that math was discovered or invented? Does that mean that it was there or not, since it already is in the universe, right? Then you have synchronicity, right? You have just how everything in the universe correlates to each other, right? Everything seems like a simulation. It seems like there's math behind everything. If you look at, you know, you can look at our physics. Now, this is a big debate, because when you go to Euclidean geometry, which was physics, right? These people thousands of years ago were making the ancient geometry. They were making the geometry we know today, right? The five, shapes, like the dodecahedron, all those, right? All those shapes, like they made those. They didn't even know that they were doing physics back then, but they were, right? But this geometry, it goes, you take Euclidean geometry is you can have 2 points on a line, right? You would think a line in this direction just goes forever, right? It just goes forever because a line doesn't have a starting point and end point. But you could take 2 points on that line, right? So you take these 2 points, you could take a third point, you can make a triangle, you can get your direction, all that, right? You can make the circles, the triangles, or slices of pie out of each circle. This is calculus, right? Calculus is based on a circle, right? Trigonometry is based on the math of a triangle, right? All of our math comes from these shapes. But nature doesn't follow these shapes. Nature doesn't grow in circle. Go show me a perfect circle in nature, because you can't, right? Show me the decahedron. Show me something that grows in nature like these 5 Euclidean shapes. You can find these shapes and everything mathematically. You can calculate these shapes and everything, but you cannot find one where I can show you, right, out of nature. You can't. So it seems to be that we made this system, this mathematical system, this geometry, to fit our universe, because nature doesn't follow it, but you can find these shapes and these mathematical equations in everything, but nothing follows it, right? As Ken Wheeler likes to say, nature is a hippie chick in a grass skirt, right? Love that saying. Ken Wheeler is he's a podcaster, he's a scientist. He wrote great works about water and the magnetism of our universe. He talks all about Tesla. He's great. He will tell you things that Tesla really said, right? And that Einstein stole ideas and is a fool, and even Tesla called him a fool. These are great things, right? Great things to learn. It's great when you learn a real history and real science. Like, the way that our science and math is taught in school is so much more difficult than it should be, right? Because we have authors from antiquity, thousands of authors left books of math that are, you could say, are hard to understand, but they were taught in easier ways. Like when you were taught math way easier, the average person back then was doing calculus and trigonometry way before our high school level, right? So, or our college level, I mean to say, you know what I mean? We don't even have that in our high schools. You go to college for that, right? But it makes sense. Like when you're doing math, when everything equates to a shape, to a circle, it makes sense. You're bringing it's real math. Like algebra is just fake. It's based on fake numbers. Sorry to go into this, but at the same time, that fake number, it brought us to levels of math that were able to help equate physics and the real world. Today, we wouldn't have been able to understand them if we didn't make fake numbers. So I can't fully trash it. But, if you look at all the ancient builders back then, like, the Romans and everything, they were building amazing buildings and doing amazing math using trigonometry and calculus before they even knew it, right? Using shapes, right? Because we should be using shapes more, right? Because it helps our brain construct. That's just how our brain constructs. Like it's very good at constructing in the shapes because we see in cones. Our eyes are circles. We see in shapes, right? So it seems like we're already wired, like we're pre-wired to math. We're pre-wired to these shapes. We're pre-wired, but nature isn't. Which also begs the question, we are the observer of this universe, right? Since we are the observer, does that separate us from this universe? Food for thought, right? Does that make the universe a separate thing than us? Or are we but we're still part of it because we die, right? We come back to the earth, we decompose, right? But it seems like our consciousness is separated from nature, from the universe. It seems like our consciousness is its own entity. And maybe that made mathematics fit our universe, right? It seems to have made us think in this mathematical pattern, right? And now we have all these equations, right? And they're still trying to have this ultimate equation where math proves all. Science and physics haven't proved all, but physics is the closest thing we have to describing our universe. And it's a great tool. It is actually scary how well physics works. It's scary how well math works to describe our realm. It's insane, right? And there's a famous quote, I forget who said it, but he said, "It is unreasonable how well this math works." And it's true. It is just absolutely, utterly unreasonable. And like, how dare you work so well? It is unreasonable for something to work so well and not be the design of our system, right? Is this a mathematical creation? Think of zeros and ones on a computer. Like we made holograms here. We made computers. We made a whole nother intelligence. We are one intelligence that made another intelligence superior to our own, mind you. That's what they say. Very on a different level, if you're thinking of it and on a mathematical scale, superior, right? But that just proves our intelligence, how smart we are, right? And we did this through math, through zeros and ones. Is information, right? Now, information in physics has to be accounted for. Information is actually a something that has weight, something that has, I would say, a gravitational pull. I would say it is something that has to be mathematically equated. Information has to be mathematically equated in our physics. So, what is that? What is that? Is that math? Is the universe math? Right? Is it a mathematical universe? Or did we invent it? Because nature, we can't find it in nature. Nature doesn't grow that way. Nature doesn't grow that way. We make everything a straight line. Nature grows whichever direction it wants. It doesn't follow lines. You can't find a line in nature. You can't find a straight line. So, what have we done here? What the fuck is this place, right? Right? You know, what is it? We have made this beautiful system of math that works, but yet it doesn't answer everything. And is it part of the universe? These are questions to ponder. And these pondering is what we do here on the DNAS channel. You tune in next time